To say that I am fascinated and simply blown away by my guest, Brad Johnson, on this episode, number 133 of World Awakenings, is an understatement. He is known as Earth's ambassador for spirit and is what I call a renaissance man of all things metaphysical and spiritual. Now, not only does he channel his galactic brother named Adronis from the Sirius star system, but he's also a medium, a reader of the akashic records, and practitioner of ancient healing methods and sciences. Join me for this show with Brad Johnson, and you too will be swept off your feet by this amazing knowledge and love that is offered to you and all of humanity right here on World Awakening.
This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
Hey, thank you, my friends, for stopping by and joining us today for episode number 133 of World Awakenings, a fast track to enlightenment. Now, as usual, I have another super interesting guest for you, but before we check in with him, please take a moment to click the link below to grab your free copy of my ebook, The Three Pillars, a simple three-step process to manifest positive and permanent change in your life, a book that will help you create a rock-solid personal foundation for yourself and live the life you love and love the life you live. Now with that, let's check in with our guest. Our guest is Brad Johnson, an experienced psychic, intuitive, and natural healer who has studied and practices the arts of channeling, mediumship, reading the akashic records, ancient healing, yoga, qigong, I think I pronounced that right, inner alchemy, and the ancient sciences that have been lost to man for thousands of years. He's also the founder of his company, AetherX, I think I pronounced that right too, featuring spiritual healing technology that aids in healing the physical, mental, and emotional bodies. Brad's knowledge of the ancient sciences, metaphysics, and spiritual integration of the self is profoundly vast. His knowledge comes from a natural state to connect with infinite intelligence, otherwise known as the higher self. And I absolutely love that. I'm so excited. Thank you to be here, Brad. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've been doing some research on you, and this is the first time we've met, but your expertise and your practices in the metaphysical and spiritual realm are far reaching. But first, I'd like to find out, how did it come about that you accepted your life purpose was to help people and heal people through these abilities you've been gifted?
Yeah, I mean, past 15 years ago, I never imagined I'd be doing this type of work. Certainly was not on my agenda. It was certainly not a future plan of mine to even do this work whatsoever. And it started back in summertime of 2008. So I was writing novels at that time, actually. And I was trying to get a concept for this one novel that was all about extraterrestrial awareness. I wanted to find out what was really going on, right? You're always hearing all these stories about ETs and everything. And so I did a lot of great in-depth research about it. And as I started researching, I started looking into channels, psychics, intuitives, black ops, community personnel. And they would all agree that as they started to look more deeper into otherworldly beings, because they would connect with them, they would realize that they are actually very human like us. They evolve on other planets, and many of them believe in a one infinite creator. And that if you go into meditation, you can connect with many of these different types of civilizations, and they can communicate with you. And this just blew me away, because this is never what I really had an idea of pertaining to extraterrestrials. So I decided to put the entire project of the book aside, and I wanted to look much more into this. And this is where I first started to meditate. Before that time, I never did any type of meditation. So I went into my library, my public library, I took out a book called Learn How to Meditate. There's quite a few different exercises in it, read it from front cover to back cover within a couple of weeks. After that time, I started going very, very deeply into these particular practices, just learning how to work with the breath, just quieting the mind. And I was quite visual when I first started. And I'd start going into these astral planes, kind of like these kind of inner mazes. And I'd start looking at these floating balls of light, like crystal balls. And as I touched them astrally, I could feel them physically awakening things within myself. So it's kind of like downloading a memory bank and feeling like I was getting my memories retrieved back into me. And it was basically what I would refer to as download states. So I'd wake up the next morning having all of this realization of great knowledge. It's kind of like you're just trying to make sense of an ocean of knowledge that's just pouring through you all at once. And it's still taken me years to try and digest everything that's come through. So having these enormous amounts of download states, and I woke up in the middle of the night, like again, when I dream, I would dream about like I'd be like in these non-physical classrooms. I just dream of like these rays of light just teaching me these different things without having to speak whatsoever. It was just all these download states, and then that would just happen. It still happens every now and then as well too, that I just get these download states coming through, and I would just start receiving this plethora of knowledge. And like I said, just trying to explain it in the linear, you just can't do it. It's just not possible. But you just start realizing there's things pertaining to truth that you know, even though you've never visited these subjects, you've never visited these topics. You just have an idea that this is how it is. I can't really explain it to you, but this is just how I know that these things are. So it got me into energy healing. It got me into channeling as well too, right? So I started looking into, again, I had friends who were also channelers as well too, and I just started to get to know their systems. It's okay, well, tell me about what you do. Like, how do you know it's your contact? How do you know this being is coming through? Mm-hmm. And they would tell you, there's a lot of it's just about trusting things. They said, well, do you have to go off into a trance state? I said, no, not really. It's something that's a conscious awareness with me. I said, okay, that's interesting. So then after I kind of was a journalist for all this, I started to get involved with it myself. So I started getting into channeling. I started looking into what other people did. I kind of trimmed the fat away from it, and all that's left was just this big core. And I just basically inputted that core within myself and started doing my own version of channeled writing and channeled contact. And I communicated with a few other collective consciousnesses from Sirius, from Arcturus, from Pleiades, from Lyra, etc. But it wasn't until one night where a channeling friend of mine says, well, Brad, I was doing some meditation, and I got connected with a being from Sirius who wants to get in touch with you. So this doesn't feel like a collective or anything like that. This feels like an actual entity that wants to communicate with you. And maybe you should go into channeling and check that out. So I did. And I went into the channeling state, and all I do is I just connect with Sirius. So I just see my vibrational awareness of Sirius within myself, and then I just tether my heart cord directly to that star. And then I just start tuning in. So, okay, I understand that there's a contact here with me, and I'm here and I await your message. And all of a sudden, just this flow of writing came through. It said, hello, I am Adronis of Sirius. I'm a version of you 297 years in the future. I have come back at this time to assist you in your own state of evolution. And through our agreement, as you evolve, you will help others to spiritually evolve together with you. Is this something that you would like to do? So this is what led to my connection with Adronis, and that was back around December of 2008. So through that time, since 2008, I've been communicating with him, and there's been a bit of hiatus here and there, but he came back recently. I basically had a kind of a 2-year hiatus away from him, just basically so I could move a lot more deeper into spiritual communication and downloading spiritual knowledge, sharing that. But he came back recently. And it's not really been for my sake. It's been for the sake of others. So it's kind of like when I first started connecting with him, he was up here, I was down here. Now when we're connecting, we're both on kind of the same level platform. It's not about seeing him outside anymore either. It's more so that he's fully integrated within me. So that's been my journey there with channeling, but there's been so many other different things. It's not just been channeling. I don't even really call it channeling anymore. It's not really channeling anymore. It's really just inner transmission. That's what I refer to it, or you could refer to it as relay. That's fine. But really, it just comes down to so many other things that I've explored, I've investigated, looking into remote viewing, looking into the akashic records, looking into different modalities of healing, looking into yoga, looking into qigong, pretty much all the things that you were sharing at the beginning. Those are some of the things. So it's really been an extensive journey, but I don't really just hang my hat on a lot of these ancient things or even a lot of these modalities. I work to blend them together. Like I'm always working just to trim the fat away and say, okay, why does this need to be here? Let's take that out. Let's get the core of these things together. And let's make our own journey to enlightenment as simple as possible. It really is already simple, but you don't need to worry about rituals. You don't need to worry about all of these particular forms of traditions that do not need to be there. It's canceling all those out and just going right into the core of your being and moving yourself directly into the nature of the self.
Wow, you're almost like a Renaissance man of metaphysics and spirituality. I love it. You have so many areas of interest and expertise. Now, hopefully, in a little bit, we might be able to meet with Adronis and talk to him, ask him a couple questions. Before we do that, just going back for a moment, before 2008, when this happened to you, I mean, what were you doing for a living? You were a professional writer, and what were you like? Did you have these abilities when you were a child?
Yeah, I did a couple of different jobs. So one of it was like computer work. I also did marketing as well too. I was also starting to get into video game design as well. I was getting into writing, so I've been writing every now and then throughout the years. I also wrote screenplays as well too. So I was very much into writing. I was very much into acting as well. But back then, no, I certainly had abilities. I just wasn't aware of them. That's all, right? I was very much intuitive. I was able to kind of see things happening, but I never gave it a second thought, right? I was basically raised as a Jehovah's Witness. And
Oh,
as a JW, right, you don't look at that stuff. That's considered demonism, right? If you're looking at anything pertaining to psychic phenomena or telepathy or anything of that nature, or basically trying to predict the future, all the demons with you, right? You got a demon in you. I never really conveyed it in that way, but that's basically how they saw it. And it was never really in my upbringing to value the idea of psychic phenomena or that. But nonetheless, I did have these premonitions that would come as well too. So I would know certain things were happening and then they would happen. It almost come into like an entertainment way as well too. I'd know a certain episode of a TV show would be on and all of a sudden it would be on. So I'd know these certain things before they happen. So yeah, it was there. There was basically bleed through, as you could say. But no, it wasn't until age 29. Back in 2008, when all of this began for me, because this was never a direction I ever thought I would ever be going. It was never in my plan. It was never in my, never on the cards for myself. I was really just looking to get more into marketing or maybe into tech support or something like that. This was never on the plan. And now, from looking back at that, I couldn't care less about that stuff.
right.
But now this is all that really matters to me, is just is working to expand, helping others to expand as well too, and just working together with others, kind of a close family. That's what's important to me.
And everything, of course, happens in the right way at the right time. Obviously, 2008 was your time to enter a new portal.
Mhm.
Wow, this is great. You have so many amazing talents and abilities, and I'm really interested in this. You practice something called the science of the simple. What is that?
Yes. Well, that's something that Adronis coined a phrase quite a few years ago. It was actually when I was first starting to connect with him and channel. And he would always come through and says, follow the science of the simple, right? So basically, when you're working together with complexity, you're working too hard, you're trying too hard, right? That is kind of like the exhaust fumes of the ego. If you're working too hard and you're trying so hard to make things work, you're out here and you're in the duality and you're trying to make things work. And say, well, that's not even really a science. That's you just bunching things up, pertaining to trying to make things too complicated. You're making things too complicated, and that goes against the flow of nature. The flow of nature really is a very simple thing. And with who you are, it's meant to flow in that simplicity. Synchronicity, for example, is simplicity. When you're just showing up at the right place at the right time and all of these things are coming to you, you didn't plan that. You didn't make that. You didn't want to feel like you had to create an agenda to make all of those things happen. Everything just aligned in that way. And that's the science of the simple, is it comes through effortlessness. It is the ability to be effortless. And basically the idea of non-doing. So basically you are still doing things, but you are not doing it through the planning of the mind. It's not involving so much intellect. It's not involving so much logic in that way. It's just that you are still, and then you will have the impulse to move. You will have the impulse to do something. You have the impulse to talk to somebody. You have the impulse to take care of a task. So basically it's following that type of intuitive, instinctual impulse. otherwise known as the science of the simple. So when you follow the science of the simple, everything comes to you. Now, it's not to say a person who's been struggling for years to all of a sudden get into this is going to realize that. This is something that you have to develop within yourself. And so really what we need to do first and foremost is we need to learn how to go into a subtle state of being. We need to go into the low idle state. What do I mean by that? Well, yogis will basically talk about working with the breath, working with pranayama, right? Getting yourself comfortable, maybe even doing some asanas, doing some yoga, right? Getting yourself aligned so that you can move much more subtly into the lower states of being, so that as you're in the lower states of being, the thought flow becomes less and less and less, which means you're phasing out the ego. The ego is getting completely phased. When I'm talking about the ego, I'm not talking about the Freudian ego. I'm not talking about superego, ego, the id, or any of that nonsense. I'm basically referring to the ego that in Sanskrit we refer to as ahamkara, which basically represents the nature of I-ness. I should do this. I should do that. I would take care of this. I should do that. I blah, 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 right? It's all this idea of the ego masquerading as I. Well, what is the nature of I? Well, the nature of I is who you really are, but the ego is not who you really are. So it keeps trying to masquerade and sabotage everything in your life, trying to pretend that it's you, but it's not you, right? It's nothing really more than a program. It's the shadow. It's an abscess. It's something that has been projected through an obstruction, and you're basically creating the obstruction. So when you're going into the low idle states, you're keeping those obstructions down. You're fading them away. So that only that exists now is just you standing in the sun. Now that you're standing in the sun, you're now moving towards that source, right? The sun being your source, and you're just moving into it. Rather, I would say you just are the sun. You just don't realize it. So we want to basically get into the point of following the science of the simple to get yourself into a subtle state of being. As you get into a subtle state of being, you start to naturally move into a type of trance. This is exactly how yogis go into yogic trance. They'll often do things like yoga nidra, or again, they'll do certain forms of going into states like single pointedness, one pointedness, right? So looking into dharana, looking into dhyana, looking into samadhi, right? Even in Buddhism, they refer to it as the nirvana state, right? Just going into that state where just everything is stillness. And that is when you understand everything. That is when you know everything. That is when you are everything. That is when you are being everything. So what you're learning to do is to learn how to be awareness. Now, awareness simply is, but it is your recognition to know that you are aware that matters here, right? So it's us being the vessel here that needs to connect to that which is always present, which is always here, the permanence of being all together. So to follow the science of the simple is to, again, surrender yourself to the moment so that you realize that you are the epitome of awareness. And through awareness being omnipotent, omnipotent, omniscient, then that is what the qualities of yourself will bring. You'll have that nature of awareness where you can access anything, anytime, anywhere, where it's all knowledge of all creation can flow through you, as long as you are remaining in that recognition of awareness. That's the science of the simple.
Wow, that is some deep, beautiful wisdom. Now, you speaking of effortlessness as a part of the science of the simple speaks to me because I'm a certified law of attraction life coach. And when you want to manifest, you have to be in a state of effortlessness with no blockages, not trying too hard. You actually create resistance.
Yes, well, that's exactly the thing. Is if you're creating a resistance, you want something to happen. You're trying to control things. You're trying to control the outside world, and that's the problem, right? Don't try to control that which is outside of you, right? Everything pertaining to control, just bring it into yourself. Control the work that you can do for yourself to heal. Control the work that you can do for yourself to grow. Control the work for yourself so that you can expand. If you're bringing about manifestations in that way, that's fine. But when you're working together with the nature of manifestation, see how it benefits many rather than just yourself. A lot of people get very selfish when it looks to the idea of manifestation, about, oh, I want this big car, I want this big house, and I want all this money flowing through my bank account, millions and millions of dollars. And that's basically just incredibly selfish, right? And it's not to say that you can't get those, you certainly can, but that's not going to really reap a reward. What does it truly feel like when you're offering manifestation to assist others? It feels so rewarding. It feels so warm inside your heart. and you're following the science of the simple, right? Let everybody benefit from the manifestations that you are bringing forward in your life, which means if you are going to work with desires, let it be a desire that represents wholeness and wholesomeness, rather than the idea of creating unwholesome desires, right? Rather than feeling like you need to get a whole bunch of money. Okay, if you want to get money, let's see how it can benefit others with you together at the same time. Look and see how this values, how it brings wonder and love and appreciation for others for the manifestations that you can do. This is what I refer to as wholesome manifestations. You want to look into the nature of how it affects the all, rather than seeing how it just affects you. And again, like I said, you can get those things, but they're very, very short-sighted, and they're very, very short-lasting, and they're very short-term, right? Because again, a person can go ahead and manifest $100,000 in their bank account, and then they can go and spend it, but then they're just spending on things that they really don't need, and that gap and that void within themselves still remains. Right? Work with manifestations that bring you into a state of wholesomeness, that bring you into a wholeness of working together with those that you love. What are things that you can do that can benefit your community, that can benefit your friends, that can benefit your family, that can benefit the entire world? That's where you're seeing a lot more bigger, right? There's just no such thing as being able to satisfy desire. You can't do it. Right? These egoic desires about trying to look at all these different things that you think you need, you don't. And basically, like I said, it just becomes very empty at the end of it. I know that because I did all that in the beginning, right? Manifesting all these things, manifesting clients, manifesting all these things, and just things that represented myself. And I just saw how it was empty. And then when I started to tweak it and saying, I'm going to manifest these things to help others as well, too. And that is where there's reward. That's where there's a good wholesomeness. So when you're manifesting, let it be for something that works together with the many, rather than the idea of just yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is definitely ancient, beautiful, universal wisdom and advice. Yeah, and thank you for that. Well, we did mention earlier at the start that you do some channeling, and that you have a galactic friend named Adronis that speaks through you. I did like you.
Well, I don't call it channeling anymore. It's mostly just inner transmission. And I wouldn't call him a friend. He's family.
Oh, that's right.
Right?
Yeah, he's your future self.
He would represent me. Him and I are basically one and the same, right? So we are of the same soul.
Well, and is it possible we could bring Adronis in right now?
Yeah, so basically the whole process of me going through there is that you basically will see me doing what's known as orbiting, right? So you'll basically see me doing kind of a spiraling movement. And what that does is that just helps to keep me in the state. It keeps me centered. It keeps me kind of in alignment with Adronis's transmission as it comes through. You'll also hear me doing some chanting as well too, which also helps me get into an alignment. I don't really particularly need to do those things, but I do it just as a means, as it brings good comfort to me as I bring Adronis through. But like I said, it's not that I'm here and he's here. It's all an inner journey in that way. It's an inner transmission. So yes, he will come through. He'll give a brief introduction to himself, and then any questions you have, feel free to share. So I'll go ahead and take a moment and bring him through now. Here we go. Soul Star. See ya. Adronis. We are here. At this time, we bid you greetings and thank you very much for the opportunity of this interaction today. I am Adronis of Sirius, sending love, appreciation, and gratitude to all who are tuning in to this broadcast being brought forward through your internet collective consciousness. We want to thank each and every single one of you this day of your time for the allowance of enabling us to come through. And we ask all of you now who are receiving this transmission to simply let yourselves get relaxed, get comfortable, and tune in to the vibrations of Sirius so that you may synchronize, harmonize, and align to all of the information that we have to share. Also understand that all of the information that we shall provide today is simply that of our perspective, our point of view. For all knowledge, all information, all creation itself resides within your very hearts, beings, and souls. And so we say hello to the host known as Caro. We thank you, and how may we assist you today?
Wow, Adronis, I'm so blessed. We are so blessed to have you join us here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love your energy already, so you can share that with us. But I am so excited. I have so much to ask you because I have such a thirst to know. I want to know, and your brother Brad there is just amazing, and thank you. I have a question about healing. And I know that Brad and you are deeply involved in healing people physically, spiritually, energetically. I have a deep interest in healing myself. So I ask you, why are so many humans sick? How can they be universally healed individually and collectively?
They've forgotten how to live. Simple as that. You've forgotten how to live in nature. You've forgotten how to live in alignment to life. You see, again, many of you stay confined into the nature of survival. And survival is actually what you would refer to as unnatural nature. Because basically what you're doing is you're taking the nature of your own being and you're pedaling backwards, you're walking backwards. You're like a hamster on a wheel just continuing to spin, hoping that this wheel will end sometime soon. But basically, you have been living very, very strongly in a state of duality with yourself, in a state of duality with others, and in a state of duality with the entire world, where again, you feel like you need to live to survive rather than live to live. So the nature of you being able to basically stay on this hamster wheel and feeling that you are just pedaling like crazy is the idea that you are utilizing your own energies to try and stay within the physical, to see that the physical itself can resolve itself with all of the problems that you have obtained through the physical, and that can't be done. It is very much like what Brad shared earlier, is that again, you're following the science of the simple. Now, to work together with the nature of healing, Carl, would you be able to define the word healing for us?
Remembering your perfect state, whether it's physically or spiritually, that you were created and is your birthright to be, where there is no deviation from perfection.
All right, that is a nice translation, but we can even sum it up into one word: union. That's what it comes down to. To heal is to bring yourself into the nature of union, because what resides within union? The non-dual, non-polarity. Everything that represents harmony, everything that represents the natural order. So when you are healing, you would refer to that as the union. So when you're going through a state of healing, healing is by its own nature completely and totally effortless. But again, what many of you will do is feeling that you need to go through great deals of complications to make yourselves heal. And that is, again, walking backwards. That's the hamster on the wheel once again. The whole idea here is that you're moving into a state of non-reaction. When you start reacting to everything on this planet and you start seeing how horrible everything is, and you're getting triggered by everything, and your traumas are building up, and your mental levels are now cascading into states of craziness, that again is going against the grain. There's nothing that represents a simplicity representing that in any shape, way, or form. When you are moving into the nature of union, everything just comes into the center. Everything becomes still. Everything becomes quiet. Everything becomes silent, because you have surrendered yourself to the moment. And that's all that's required for the nature of healing. Does not have to be anything fancy, does not have to be anything pertaining to the idea of a ritual or a trend or a tradition and anything of that nature. It is the ability to surrender into union. That's the healing process altogether. So when you ask, what does a person need to do to move into a state of healing, and can this be done individually and collectively? The collective is out of your hands. You cannot control it. Do not even try. It is for yourselves to work together with yourself, so that you can now start to move into a state of centering, looking at all of these problems, all of these conflicts, all of these traumas for what they are, and being able to have enough strength, enough commitment to just go into the center and let all of them completely vanish. Let all of them completely be dropped. Let them all go. So in order for that to happen, you must learn to soften. So the softening is the processing towards healing. It is not healing itself, but it is the process towards that. It's you walking up a ladder. It's you walking up a stairwell, whatever analogy you want to utilize that represents the nature of progression. So you are progressing yourself by softening, by loosening yourself up. Even as your master teacher Jesus has once said, is the idea of the ability to whatever you loosen on earth shall be loosened in heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. So this is the whole idea, is to loosen, to let go, to no longer identify with your problems, to thinking that that represents your identity, because that's the only reason you keep them around. You think that because you're in pain, you identify as the pain. You think that because you're angry, you identify as being angry. You feel in that sense that you are traumatized by the nature of abuse. You feel that you are the identity of that traumatic abuse. You keep identifying and attaching to all of these states of pain and suffering. And that is exactly why it carries out. And how do you attach? Because you react to them. You react to the feeling of getting angry. You react to something that somebody says that therefore makes you upset. And you continue to carry that across with you for as long as you feel you need to, because you're still validating it as a state of identity. When you learn to let go of all those things, you are no longer burdened by that. You are now in the center. You are now omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. Because now everything is here for you. It's always been here. But now you're realizing that. You've always recognized it. Awareness is not something that has a beginning, a middle, of an end. The idea of what you consider yourself to be as an entity has a beginning, a middle, of an end, because that represents body principle. But it's the nature of who and what you are when you come into the center. You know yourself to be God. You know yourself to be the sovereign. You know yourself to be the self. That's what comes through when you are in healing. When, in other words, you are in union. You see?
And you speak of union and non-dualistic existence and awareness.
Not existence. Existence is an impermanent thing. The ability to simply be the non-dual does not play in the nature of existence. It is what is.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, I didn't state that right. So this speaks volumes to me, in that, this show is called World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment. It would seem to me that every human's journey is the ultimate goal into remembering our true self in a state of union with all that is, correct?
There is an idea here. When you firstly come into your mother's womb as a child, you are still freshly connected to the divine. You are connected to source intelligence. And really the only intention you have as a young child, in that sense, being born through your mother's womb, is, this is the last time I do this. This is the last time I incarnate. I'm not going to do this again. I'm going to go through this life. I'm going to succeed spectacularly, and then I'm going to go home. And every single one of you says this, that this is the last time I'm doing this. This is the last time I'm going in here. I'm going to take care of everything, and then I'm returning home to the divine. So again, what happens? You go through life and you start having addictions. You start having attachments. You start having identifications. You have forgotten the way of enlightenment. And what is it to be enlightened? When you are going into a state of enlightenment, it's just a realization of knowing of who and what you are. Because as a child in the womb, you know who and what you are, which means when you're in the womb of your mother, you are in enlightenment.
Wow. I love that. Thank you. What a beautiful explanation. Sticking with the topic of illnesses, isn't this where all illness starts, when our energy centers become blocked by those traumas and unforgivenesses and deep-seated feelings of guilt, lack, paradigms, and unworthiness? Isn't
Yes.
The true
Yes.
nature of illness?
Yes, because that is again everything that you identify with, which means you're identifying with the poison that is causing you to be ill, which means you are sucking back on a container, on a flask, thinking that it's good for you, when in fact you're just drinking small doses of poison. And that's what you're doing when you're again attaching to these ideas. I need to be judgmental towards this person. I need to point a finger towards this person. I need to play a blame game here. Oh, I'm sick. It's somebody else's fault. Oh, I caught this because of somebody else. It's always the idea that you are attached to the circumstances of physical external reality. And that's what you're tying into. That's what you're locking onto altogether. And you do that in excess. And it is the excess that is causing your body to deteriorate at a rapid speed. Some of you will place so much excess of conflict upon yourself in the greatest states of duality that you can imagine, that again, your body gets sick and you actually have to pass away from the body quite quickly. It can be in your 30s, it can be in your 40s, because you have created such an excess where you did not know when to stop. You were taking all of those flasks and you were dousing them down, guzzling them down like there's no tomorrow, and continuing to get more and more and more ill. And it's because you attach to the worldly things. It's because you attach to human things. It's because you attach to artificial things. It's because you don't know how to live. And if you know how to live, you're going to be cleaning yourself up of all of those poisons, that you can live a full life right up into your body's last moments, that could well be up into your 80s, your 90s, even your 100s. But again, many of you in that sense do not know how to live. You've only come into this world and you have been basically indoctrinated just to how to survive, and just how to make ends meet, and just know how to scrape it by for another day. And that is what's going to bring about the shortness of life. And you're going to come back again and you're going to do it again, because you have attachments, because you have identity. And it's all going to come back because you return to basically correct all the things that have transpired from the scene of the crime. The physical reality is the scene of the crime. It's about coming back here and being able to rectify, to being able to harmonize all of these things. Now, everybody has their own journey, and we cannot generalize this for you. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own particular forms of complexities and conflicts and traumas, and everybody has their own way about how they can liberate it. But nonetheless, this is the common pattern that every human being is going through.
Wow. So this is interesting. Most of human, well, no, all of human modern medicine treats the effect instead of the source. So, for example, I have a sinus infection. After I'm done talking to you, I am going to the pharmacist to pick up a prescription. Is that just like a placebo because I believe it's going to work? Instead of
in some cases it can be, because the whole idea is that if you feel that you're going to take this, it's actually you that's doing the healing rather than the pill.
Yes. Yeah, which is how placebo works, right?
Yes. But again, understand that all of the chemicals that are made for that pill that may not be too harmonious for your body is still going to impact it in some shape, way, or form.
Yes.
So the whole idea here in that sense is, if you know that, for example, taking a sinus pill is going to cure you of your sinus infection, guess what? You're the one that did the healing on yourself. Now, the whole idea is, let's take the pill out of the equation. Let's just know that if I'm ill, that the ability for me to go into the center and to surrender and to loosen and to lighten up, because I'm actually feeling how amazing this is when I go into the center, how much joy I'm feeling, how much love I'm feeling, and just staying in there for a certain amount of time will completely let go of that illness altogether. It will be done the same way. So nothing needs to be taken pertaining to an external aid. An external aid, again, through much of your upbringing, is feeling that as soon as you take a Tylenol, as soon as you take an Advil, then all of a sudden you're going to be better. But it really comes down to you knowing that that is what has made you better, is your own power.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. You know, our power, we've forgotten our true power as our higher self. Oh my gosh, this is beautiful.
You see, we would have the ability to hypnotize somebody. And again, as you would see through hypnotists, many of them can have them bark like a dog or cluck like a chicken. And then they would be able to snap out of it and say, oh, what happened? Oh, well, you bark like a dog and you cluck like a chicken. But again, being able to go into your own state of hypnosis has been proven that the idea in that sense that you can act as someone completely different, or you could also do these incredible things. In fact, there have been people who have been hypnotized and have been able to lift cars.
Mhm.
There are people who have been hypnotized and been able to lift very heavy things multiple times their own weight. Because again, that's the power of the mind that you're not tapping into. And hypnosis will often represent itself as an entertainment value to demonstrating that. But if you can actually harness these particular capabilities within yourself, this is telling you exactly what you can do with your own life. You can completely harmonize every particular facet of yourself when you are in the alignment of that. And the reason why hypnosis works is because it is a concentration. It is a suggestion of concentration to which the one that is receiving the hypnosis effect is now demonstrating. So therefore, all you're really doing for yourself is just applying that same level of concentration upon yourself to therefore rid anything pertaining to illness that therefore burdens you.
Mhm. So I have had another Syrian on the show. You are from the Sirius B galaxy.
No, there is not a Sirius B galaxy. It is the idea that when you look at Canis Major, your own star system is part of that. Which
Okay.
means that we basically come from, as you would term, the same type of cluster of star systems together. So you basically representing the Sol system, and us approximately 7.5 to 8 light years away would represent that of what you would know as Sirius A, which
Okay.
is contained in the Canis Majoris star constellation. So therefore, you are part of Canis Major. So you are a Canis Majoran alongside us.
Wow, we're brothers. I like that.
Star family, yes.
Our family. Well, the reason I brought that up is on a previous show I have had Othello, who is from Sirius B, and she is in relation to the topic of healing. Othello mentioned quite often the Sirius blue ray healing technology. Is that anything you'd care to talk about?
Well, we do not personally work with that.
Okay, but it is healing technology
It
incorporated.
is. It basically works together with the blue band of vibration in that sense. And what that does is that brings about a very strong potency effect in regards to relaxing all facets of your being. So it's affecting you much more on a cellular level, but it also, in that sense, is overimposing itself pertaining to your vibration, which brings everything much more into a state of subtlety and calmness and accelerated states of regeneration. It is a Syrian technology, quite common because many of these Syrians that exist in Sirius B are quite technocratic. We're not so much in that alignment.
Okay, interesting. Well, thank you for that. Shifting gears a little bit here, I read one of Brad's blogs recently that makes a statement that the ego is an inorganic implant within us that can be considered the greatest virus ever known by man. Would you care to address this?
Yes, in a way, that's true. The whole idea here and the idea of the ego, what makes it a virus is your own, in that sense, resistance to it. The idea in that sense of saying, oh, I hate my ego, I can't stand this ego needs to go. Well, that again is fueling the flames of the fire. So therefore, in that sense, yes, the ego does represent a particular program, but it is intentional. It is something that is implanted directly into your makeup, but that is intentional because it's attempting to show you that everything that the ego is, you are not. And that's all part of its testing. That's all part of its trial. That's all part of its trials and tribulations of helping you to understand more of who you are by looking at what you are not when the ego is attempting to show itself. But it really does not have any particular type of body. It utilizes your body. It does not have a voice. It utilizes your voice. It does not have a particular type of presence. It uses your presence. So it is very much like what you would understand as the shadow of your own soul. That's the nature of the ego. So you can see it as something that actually does act quite viral, something that does act in that sense very much more as a blight upon yourself. But again, that shadow needs to be there. This is why many of you in that sense say that you're doing shadow work. You're working with the shadow of your being. So it basically would be, in an analogy, saying that it is the shadow of one's own soul. And that the whole idea of why it exists, well, is no more different than why a shadow appears to exist. It's because there's an obstruction in the way. Remove the obstruction, and there will be no shadow.
So, for my studies of non-dualistic spirituality, my understanding is that the ego was created upon the genesis of us being in union with Source, with all that is, with God, the universe. Upon that separation, the dream, what they call a tiny man idea of separation from Source, then the ego was generated, and that's how it came about. And I guess that would be the implanted ego.
Again, you're still looking at the idea of looking at this linearly. And it's not really that idea. As we stated, the ego represents the nature of the shadow of the soul, which means it comes from perspective. It does not really come through the nature of a time dilation. There is no such thing as time, really. Time is just a measurement. Space, again, is being utilized in that state of measurement, but space really has no properties whatsoever. When you're looking at the nature of the ego, it comes through a perspective. It comes through an angle. It comes from a vantage point where you are now able to look and see that there's actually a shadow being produced through the nature of an obstruction. It is through the happenings. It is through the, as you would say, the karma of what is therefore being shared by the entity in question that therefore enables them to turn to see that there's actually a shadow there. It really goes back into certain Advaita Vedanta teachings that when the idea of someone who thinks they see a snake is actually just looking at a rope, and that the rope itself is actually what caused that terror. When a person starts looking back at their own perspectives and actually starting to see terror, they can't realize that they are the ones that are actually making that situation something for them to reflect back upon, something that may scare them. But when they look a little bit more closer, they realized, oh, there was no snake there whatsoever. It's just a rope. Then all of a sudden, that shadow disappears. So it all comes down into the nature of investigation. It was your own Ramana Maharshi that was teaching many of you about the nature of self-inquiry, because many of you are believing that all of these ropes around you are snakes, and that you are basically at the verge of being bitten, being poisoned by them, when in fact it's all based upon your own interpretation of what you think the rope is that is making the situation tragic. But when you look at it deeper and realize, oh, well, it's nothing but a rope, gone. It drops, it drops, it drops, it drops. And that's basically what we're saying here, is that the ego does not have a particular locus to it. It does not have a particular, shall we say, embodiment to it. It works with your body. It is the casting of your own shadow. It does not have its own intelligence. It works with your own intelligence. So it is basically, as you would say, yourself looking at a point past ignorance, so that the ego itself basically does not have any particular association with you whatsoever, because you're removing the obstructions. The only reason why the ego exists is because of obstructions, of ego, of ignorance. Ignorance is the very cause of the ego, period. When the ignorance is alleviated, there's no more obstructions that are causing the shadow to be cast, because you have no objects that are blocking the sun. You realize you are the sun.
And that is the goal of each of our life journey, is to remove the ignorance.
It's not really a goal, it's the nature of who you are. Who and what you are. You see, a goal is something that you are setting yourself out to. It is something that which you are becoming. We're not talking about becoming here. We're talking about being. So therefore, when you're looking at being yourself, and you are the sun that is shining this brilliant radiance, there's no shadows in the way, because now you realize that you were the sun all along, not the obstruction.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you. You know, we are talking to our brother Adonis, a galactic brother coming through our friend Brad Johnson here. I love doing this. One last question before we bring Brad back. Why are so many of our star seeds and galactic brothers so interested in what's going on Mother Earth right now with the humanity?
Well, it's not that they're so interested. They're here to basically work. They're not here just to take a vacation. They are observing you because this is all part of their work, because they are associated together with you. What resides within you are 22 different extraterrestrial races that you would consider to be close family to you, that represent your genetic makeup, we being one of those 22. So again, therefore, we are checking up on family. We are performing tasks. We are working behind the scenes as well, too, as we work with your planet, as we work with many of you behind the scenes. This is not a vacation getaway, as it were.
Wow.
We're here because we do have, as it were, in the best way of putting it, a karmic association with your people. That's why we're here. Now, there are those who are observing as well, too, because they are also learning about what everything needs to, shall we say, come together as, when they're looking at the in front of the scenes from what you're doing, and what they're also looking behind the scenes from what we're doing. So there are basically what you would know as students as well, too, that are simply observing these things and seeing exactly what needs to take place and what not to do as a particular form of Earth-based civilization, because there are many other Earth-like planets and other Earth-like civilizations. And many other civilizations are quite fascinated by how many of you conduct your day-to-day affairs. We're also quite fascinated about how you are able to imagine everything, how you're able to bring everything into being so quickly, how you're able to pull things out of thin air and see how all these things manifest very, very quickly. How you spend so much time just creating things is something that is very, very fascinating to many of your galactic family, galactic cousins, galactic brothers and sisters, and so forth. There is a great deal of fascination just by looking at the human race itself, and you are demonstrating yourselves in such a way that is profoundly helpful to many other civilizations, even when you're going through your challenges. And most importantly, when many of you are able to overcome those challenges, there is so much love and joy coming your way because we see these things. So it is not in the idea that people are just hanging around in the orbit of your planet just for kicks. No, there is a lot of work being done. There are observers, but those observers are taking something back with them. It is not a splendid holiday.
And it all comes back to union then.
Yes, because that's all there really is.
You know? Wow, thank
There
you.
is much more of an effort trying to say that there is not union rather than the idea of effortless of knowing that there is union.
Mhm.
Effortlessness is the union itself. With you trying to maintain an image, you have to exert so much energy and effort to try and maintain that illusion. Therefore, when you let everything go and you let everything be, that is the nature of union itself.
Well, Adronis, thank you so much for coming and visiting with us. You've given me and all the viewers and listeners much to think about and contemplate in so many beautiful explanations. Thank you, Adronis. We love you. Thank you so much.
We thank you for this interaction. We will now conclude and return to the conduit. Goodbye for now. Okay, thank you very much, Carl. Hope you enjoyed that.
Wow, Brad, thank you, thank you. Wow, pretty amazing. Adronis is amazing. I had a hard time keeping up with him. He's got a lot of beautiful explanations and
Well, now
teaching.
you know exactly how far I've expanded because of that, right? So, I mean, I did that every single day with him, right, for 15 years. So basically just being able to talk to tens of thousands of people over the world with all kinds of topics, right? And like I said, there's just that point where you're expanding to the degree that the universe is just bringing in this flow with you. And a lot of what you heard is not coming from my own identity whatsoever. It's really just coming from Adronis and his connection to the universal dynamic itself. And that's what's flowing through me. And so basically, like I said, I can do what he does, but some people would like to come in because they like how he articulates, they like how they feel his energy, and that's why I bring him in. I bring him in really for the sake of others.
Yeah, it was amazing. Thank you for doing that. So speaking of Brad Johnson here, we are going to wind up a little bit. You have a website. Is it pronounced AetherX?
That's it.
AetherX, AetherX.co. And I will put that on the show notes so people can check it. You have some incredible products that help in healing. You care to talk about those?
Yeah, one of our biggest products, right now it's in a pre-order state, it is going to be coming here around the end of October, is called the Taurus Bed Kits. That's Torus, Taurus Bed Kit, so kind of like the toroidal field. So what the Taurus Bed Kit does is it contains a great deal of coding that I basically put when I'm in these deeper states. So when I'm in these deeper states, there's a particular sacred geometry, a sacred geometrical array that is contained on the bed. And I'm able to place all of those particular forms of spirit codes directly into the bed so that it works together with the energy within your solar plexus. Now, your solar plexus is basically a reserve bank for prana, right? It contains a mass amount of pranic energy there. And we work with that. And that's actually what's helping to repair your body with many different things. It basically clears up obstructions. The Taurus bed itself is designed so that it's helping your own body to self-heal. So you're basically just working with your own body's self-healing, but it's cleaning up obstructions. And of course, the caveat of the Taurus bed is also working with the source center vibration. So the source center vibration is what you find at the center of every object that exists. It is the source, right? It basically is, again, what returns you back into the ether, right? And its purpose is to discharge every particular form of debris that is contained within certain areas of the body. So we have charge, which represents the idea that you're culminating energy. And then we have discharge, which represents releasing energy, releasing everything back into the center, right? So you have something that would move clockwise, or you could look at it as centrifugal nature. You could look at something that goes counterclockwise, returning back to the source, or centripetal nature. So that's exactly what the bed does. So it is specifically programmed to work and help to heal every facet of your body that there is. So again, it's a very, very complete system. A lot of people have talked about medical beds or med beds in that way. This is the closest thing that you would get publicly to a med bed. And that's a Taurus bed kit. So again, it's just something that you would put on your own bed. We have a twin, full, queen, king size. So whatever your bed size, we don't have a single, but you can just use a twin size for that. And you put that on your bed, and you would basically receive instructions when you get the bed in the mail about how to activate the bed. Now, the bed doesn't plug in or anything like that nature because it doesn't work within the electromagnetic spectrum. It works within the subtle energy spectrum, which means it doesn't require to be plugged in. There's no circuit boards or anything like that. It looks just like your common everyday bed kit that you get from a department store. So you put that on your bed, and then you just follow the instructions and you activate it. And when you go and you lay down, you can feel all the work just being done on your body. And all it's doing is just helping to unclog. It's just helping to detoxify. It's helping to release all of that debris within your body so that your body has the natural strength to heal itself. So that's all we're doing. And it's a very, very powerful product. It's our most powerful product. And we also have other ones as well, too, when it comes to crystals, when it comes to organite. I even have what's known as my AetherX card deck that looks like tarot cards, and you can place those upon your body, and it does a very similar effect to the bed. So again, there's a lot of great stuff to look at, and the website is AetherX.co. So that's AetherX.co. Okay, and you can go there and you can check it out. There's all kinds of testimonials on the website. A lot of people all over the world receiving benefits from AetherX technology.
I actually went to your website and checked out the Taurus bed prior to coming on here with you, and it looks fascinating. So
it's quite a beautiful thing. Like right now, it's just going through customs. I'm going to be having it here in my home, so I'll be sending them out manually. So it's kind of like a mom and pop organization. My girlfriend helps me with it as well too. So the two of us are working together to send all these things out to people.
That's really exciting. Yeah, wow. And we haven't had a chance to talk. There's so much, like I said, you're like a Renaissance man of metaphysics and spirituality and enlightenment. I love it. You have a number of books. I will put some references. I think I've got a couple here listed: The Reality Whisperer, The Rainbow Wisdom. I know you have more. I will also post those on the show notes too. What's the best way for people to connect with you? I know you have a website also, New Earth Teachings.
Yeah, you can go to newearthteachings.com. So that's newearthteachings.com. There's a contact page there. You can also order some of the sessions there. One of my newest sessions is working with a full body source healing session. It usually takes me about an hour and a half to 2 to complete it. But basically, I work with your entire body, and I found out exactly what is working well and what is basically having challenges. And I'm also working with kind of like what I do with AetherX, working with a source vibration and working with your own solar plexus energy through my own willpower to help clear a lot of those blockages in the way so that your body can naturally heal itself. That's all we're doing. We're not trying to make your body into a Hulk or anything of that nature. We're just clearing away all of the obstructions that are there, just helping to let your body breathe a lot better, quite literally, letting all of the pranic channels open up so that your body can naturally heal itself. And usually between 30 days or so, or sometimes less, sometimes more, people start to receive this incredible healing effect because their body's now able to heal itself because all these obstructions are clearing out of the way now.
Brad Johnson, you are amazing what you are doing to heal the world, and all that is so appreciated. You just fascinate me with what you do, and thank you for what you do. Namaste.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on again. Take care. Blessings.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with host Carl Gruber, a certified law of attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in to each and every episode of World Awakenings as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how much they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment daily life. Much love and light to you, my friend, and thank you for tuning into World Awakenings.